Okay, there we go. Hi guys, and I'm gonna be doing my independent reading project on The Great Gatsby. And Happy New Year's, by the way. Well, kind of, depending on how your year is going so far, I guess. Anyway, for The Great Gatsby, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald, one of the main themes I found throughout this novel was how after dwelling on a dream too long, it comes to a point where an individual's desires are unreachable and it becomes so distorted and unrealistic that it cannot be attained. And in this great American novel, it's based in 1922 after World War I, and it's based around the life of a main character, Nick Carraway, and he's a young man who moved to the wealthy area of West Egg in New York, though the East Egg is much wealthier and that's where his cousin lives. But he plans on continuing his work in the bond business, and though he thinks his decision to move there was his own, he's actually being controlled by his next door neighbor, Jay Gatsby. And Jay Gatsby is a very wealthy man, but no one really knows much about him, just that he throws very elaborate parties on Saturdays. There's a lot of very absurd rumors going around saying about how he killed a man, he's a German spy, and how he gets his money and his wealth through very sketchy ways, which isn't too far off, actually. And while Nick Carraway is in West Egg, before that he was a soldier. And at the same time, Gatsby was also a soldier during World War I, and he uses that as an excuse to say how he knows Nick. And before he went to war, he had a brief relationship with Nick's cousin Daisy, and he wanted to win her back because while he was at war, Daisy went and married Tom Buchanan, plans on using Nick to get Daisy back into his life. And Tom Buchanan's a very brute and arrogant man. He's very obsessed with himself, and he just thinks he's the greatest thing alive. He was a football star. He got all his money from past family inheritance. And Tom actually cheats on Daisy with this woman named Myrtle, and he goes to New York frequently to visit her. And at one point, Nick is dragged into this adultery, where Tom drags him to New York to meet Myrtle, and at the same time, he meets his temporary lover, Jordan Baker. And while Gatsby's elaborate plan is starting to get into place, and he's starting to get with Daisy, when they break the news to Tom, Daisy ends up driving home with Gatsby, and she ironically kills Myrtle. And later on, Tom turns Myrtle's husband on Gatsby and has him killed as well. But there's a lot of connections between this story and the short story of Winter Dreams, which is also by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And there's a lot of symbolism and commonly occurring themes that occur in both. In Winter Dreams and Great Gatsby, one of the main connections between the two is how there are two main characters, and the main character of the male, he is originally a poor boy who works himself up to be a wealthy man, which is something he earns on his own. Yet they both chase a very prissy and snobby and self-centered woman who is mainly focused on herself, and she likes to flirt a lot with any different kinds of men. And both main characters, who are the males, they are so busy chasing her, and they make the woman seem to be something greater than she really is. And this becomes their own dream, and they make the woman become something that she really isn't. And both works carry a similar message that humans basically they naturally set themselves up for failure. They place their dreams and desires far out of reach, and basically they cannot be achieved because they are placed so far out of reach. And in The Great Gatsby, some forms of symbolism that can also be found in Winter Dreams is something I found really interesting personally. I was very interested with the symbolism of T.J. Eckleburg and the Valley of Ashes, because when Tom takes Nick to New York to meet Myrtle, they see the train workers and they're shoveling coal, and they see the ash from the coal. And the ash symbolizes the darkness and the cloud of ash covering the adultery of Tom and his misdoings. And though the ash hides it, the eyes of Teacher Eckleburg, which is a billboard standing above the train station, it can see everything. And the billboard itself, it symbolizes the eyes of God, and also the moral conscience of the man doing such deeds. And it just shows how, no matter who you are, there is always going to be a high power that knows you are doing wrong, and you yourself know you are doing wrong. And also, in this, there's a common theme that shows with the actions of Daisy, Jordan, Tom, and Gatsby. It shows the shallow and worthless personalities of the rich and the wealthy. Those are brought into view to the reader. And this becomes especially apparent when Myrtle is killed after Daisy hits her with the car, and everyone goes back to Tom's place, and Daisy and Tom go inside, and Nick and Jordan are outside. And Jordan tries to get Nick to go inside, saying that the night is still young, they can still have a good time, there's plenty of things to do, it's a good night after all, and it just shows Nick that he's with the wrong people, and they're very self-centered, and it shows how the wealthy have no concerns for anything other than their own affairs. And it just makes them impartial to anyone else's suffering. And this is also very common today, seen with how those who are wealthy, they are very only concerned with themselves. I know there's a few that are good, but the majority are very concerned with how they do and how they make themselves look in their lives. And anyone who is poor or needs any help, they're just completely off the side. They have absolutely no part in their own lives. And that is just something that can be reflected in both novels. And also can be seen in Winter Dreams with how in the beginning the woman was ignoring the the golf carrier. And as soon as he became someone, then she finally took interest in him because she meant something in his life. And that's just seen in today as well. But thank you for watching my presentation. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please leave them in the box below, and I will get back to them as soon as I can. Thank you, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. So, good night.